What kind of legacy would you like to leave in the African American community?
It's hard for me to say what I've meant to the African American community. I can say what Michelle's meant to the African American community. Michelle's the bomb. So what concretely I can say is that the work this administration's done has made a difference in the lives of people who are struggling, and those folks are disproportionately people of color. So whether it's the Affordable Care Act and making sure people have health care, or it's expanding Pell Grants, or it's programs to deal with low-income communities to help them rebuild and provide better job training. In each of those areas, there are a lot of people who are better off than they otherwise would have been because of the concrete actions that we took. There's a second category of issues that have to do with government action and are specifically related to civil rights, voting rights. We now have an outstanding Civil Rights Division in the Justice Department that is actively filing suits and winning lawsuits to make sure people have the right to vote, to make sure that discriminatory practices are rooted out. That's another category. I put in that same category the work we've been doing around criminal justice reform and reshaping how we do commutations, and how we are working with law enforcement around best practices for policing. Right, so that's a whole category of issues. And then, then there's just the cultural and psychological issues. And it's interesting. I think the impact may be not just with, black kids taken for granted that somebody who looks like them can be president, but their white peers taken for granted that somebody that doesn't look like them can be president. All of you are young enough that in some ways it's plausible to you maybe that race relations have gotten worse, but actually it's a testimony to how much better they've gotten that this shocks you. Evidence that there may be racial bias in our criminal justice system, you're hurt, whereas 25, 30 years ago that was a given. So sometimes progress involves improvement, but then raising expectations. Things are a lot better, but now our expectations are a lot higher. Look, we got a long way to go when it comes to racial issues. History can go backwards as well as forwards. But the overall trajectory, I think, is positive. And the caution I have for this cohort, because there's probably some self-selection going on. You guys are, if you're interning here with Obama, then you're probably you're more likely to have certain political views. So I just want to caution all of you to make sure that in wanting to improve race relations, you don't become so rigid and sensitive in terms of your own views that instead of opening up dialogue, you sort of harden lines and divisions.